A wonderful career in Cincinnati came to a rough end for Eugenio Suarez, who made his way to Seattle as basically a throw-in in the Jesse Winker trade. But not only was Suarez a bigger part of the Mariners' drought-ending 2022 season than Winker was, he was overall one of the most valuable third basemen in all of baseball. Good vibes only here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. Colby, hit it.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It is Thursday, November 3rd, 2022. This is Ty Gonzalez and Colby Patnode for the Locked On Mariners podcast. Thank you so much for making us your first listen. Subscribe, like, and turn on alerts if you're watching on YouTube, or subscribe and leave a 5-star review on your preferred podcast platform if you like what you hear. And if you want to hear from us even more, please consider signing up for our Patreon. The link as well as our social accounts is in the description below. On the show today, we'll be reviewing the 2022 season of Eugenio Suarez, which came as a surprise to a lot of Mariners fans. But Colby, I'm going to take this moment to pat myself on the back because I do have video evidence and audio evidence of me singing the praises of Eugenio Suarez before the season even began, right around the time that this trade was made and Suarez arrived in Seattle, saying that, you know what, I think the Mariners have something here in Eugenio Suarez. Now, to be fair, I didn't think that he was going to slash 236, 332, 459 with a 131 WRC plus and end up being worth 4.1 F4, which was one of the highest marks for all third basemen in Major League Baseball. He hit 31 home runs, 87 RBI. He did strike out 31.2% of the time, but also walked 11.6% of the time. Overall, great year for Suarez. Also turned things around defensively after returning to third base full time. As we all know, the Reds kind of experimented with him at shortstop and in 2021, and that kind of derailed things for him. He was also dealing with a shoulder thing, all that, but came back healthy this year, had a mostly healthy season until the end of the year when he had the finger injury that held him out for a little bit before he returned in time for the postseason. But let me start here. There were a lot of home runs, a lot of walk-off home runs, a lot of good defensive plays, great defensive plays even, and also just, the overall personality, the good vibes only, all that stuff. What was your favorite moment from Suarez's 2022 campaign?
Yeah, probably the walk-off home run he hit against Toronto. I believe that was a Friday night. It was a stupid Apple TV game. Yeah, I think that one, just because it was kind of in the middle of their win streak, we didn't quite know how good the Mariners were yet. They had started to play a lot better, but they were still kind of, middling around 500. Toronto came in, as a team that a lot of people thought second, third best team in the American League, and Seattle beat them 4 times. And that one home run from Eugenio Suarez, I think kind of, can be looked at in a lot of ways as a catalyst for how the rest of that month went. It was sweet. The one against Kenley Jansen certainly up there. But to me, the first one, it was his first ever walk-off home run too, which is kind of weird for a player of Eugenio's status. So, I think that's probably the moment that stands out to me.
And for me, I think Suarez kind of perfectly embodies what a big piece of what Jerry DiPoto and crew look at when they acquire players, when they bring players in from the outside. And that's how he fits in the clubhouse. He was the perfect fit for this clubhouse. It wasn't just the fans that, he stole the hearts of very early on when he arrived. It was very clear that his teammates rallied around him right from the beginning and then all year long. And I think the arrival of Jesse Winker, who had played with him and they had been good friends, I think that also kind of helped with things and helped those guys both of them comfortably fit into the clubhouse. But from having the skunk hair, right, the one half blonde, the one half black, and Scott Service saying, the whole team's gonna do it if he hits 50 bombs, all that stuff. Like I just, the way that he he kind of became one of those, maybe not necessarily a leader in the clubhouse, but a guy that everyone just genuinely likes to be around and likes to play for and loves when he has success. That's a great thing, right? That's a great thing for clubhouse chemistry. He was a big part of building this clubhouse into the family that it really became over the course of the year. For me, my favorite moment was also the walk-off against the Blue Jays because, like you said, in the middle of that win streak, you're going into a really difficult series with the Blue Jays, who you're neck and neck for the wild card, and you sweep them, and that was a big moment in that sweep because that was a little bit of a comeback for them, if I remember correctly, right? I believe they were down at one point and they were able to come back and they were able to walk that game off. Perhaps I'm wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong down in the comments below. But that was huge, and that set the tone for the rest of that series and for the rest of that win streak heading into the All-Star break, really, because if you remember, Suarez was a huge part of that win streak overall. And that was certainly his biggest moment. But you got to talk about the solo home run, or the solo walk-off home run off of Kenley Jansen as well after Julio tied things up. The Mariners blow that lead against the Braves. We've talked about that game a lot over the last few episodes. But for Suarez to cap that one off, that was the moment really where I was like, okay, the Mariners can do some damage in the postseason. And it's because of guys like Julio Rodriguez and Eugenio Suarez. And, towards the end of the year, the Mariners needed Suarez to be that guy because, it was really like, all right, they're going to get offense from Julio, but who else? Who's going to be that second guy? Who's going to be that third guy? And Suarez certainly stepped up. He also had a great postseason. He went 7 for 20 with a home run in Game 2 of the ALDS. And so, it was just it was a great season for him. Let's talk about him defensively, though, in just a moment. But real quick, a reminder, this episode of Locked On Mariners is brought to you by SimpliSafe. If you've thought about securing your home with home security but have been putting it off, you want to listen up. Right now, Locked On Mariners listeners can order the #1 rated SimpliSafe home security system for 50% off. This is their biggest offer of the year, and you won't want to miss it. Here's why I love it. In an emergency, 24/7 professional monitoring agents use Fast Protect technology exclusively from SimpliSafe to capture critical evidence and verify the threat is real so you can get priority police response. SimpliSafe is whole home security with advanced sensors for every room, window, and door, HD security cameras for inside and out, smarter ways to detect motion that alert you only when a threat is real, and even hazard sensors that detect fires, floods, and other threats to your home. 24/7 professional monitoring service costs less than $1 per day. That's less than half the price of ADT's traditional professionally installed system. With the top-rated SimpliSafe app, stay in complete control of your system anytime, anywhere. Arm or disarm, unlock for a guest, access your cameras, or adjust system settings. Don't miss your chance to save big on the only security system I recommend. Get 50% off any new SimpliSafe system at simplisafe.com/lockedonmlb. This is their biggest discount of the year, so don't wait. That's simplisafe.com/lockedonmlb. There's no safe like SimpliSafe. You're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. Thank you so much for making us your first listen. So, Colby, Suarez, now you look at the defensive metrics on Fangraphs, they're not super favorable for him, but the eye tests will tell you that Suarez was a really, really good defender this year on the hot corner. Let's talk a little bit about his defense. What did you see from Suarez this year?
He was certainly better than advertised. I think we knew that the defensive metrics he put up at shortstop were solely because he was playing out of position. He's not a shortstop. We all knew that. So I didn't really think there was much to that. But at third base, he was kind of average-ish. He was always okay, right? But he's playing third base because he can hit a lot of home runs. That's the idea, at least. And he came over to Seattle, and I don't think there was really anything about his game that was particularly surprising. We saw the power, we saw the strikeouts, we knew he could take some walks. We knew offensively he had this type of season in him, but we didn't know anything really about the glove. And it turns out the glove was just as big of a factor, maybe not as big, but a pretty big factor in his value. And you look at, you know, how are the Mariners going to replace Kyle Seager? They did it, and they got better as a result. Eugenio Suarez was a better defender this year than Kyle Seager has been at any point in the last 3 years or so. The Mariners got better defensively with Eugenio Suarez manning the hot corner. Seager probably about average towards the end. Gino's probably just a little bit better than that. So, you got to give credit to him, and you got to give credit to Perry Hill. But it certainly was a nice little bonus for the Mariners.
Yeah, back when we were talking about this trade before the season began, I was saying I think he can at least be Kyle Seager, 2021 Kyle Seager. I think you can at least get that kind of production out of Eugenio Suarez, and then, he comes through and blows us out of the water with that. But yeah, defensively speaking, he was at least as good as Kyle Seager towards the end of Seager's career. But I agree with you. I think he was at least a little bit better there. And I think he should have gotten a Gold Glove nod as well for his play over there. But you look at the numbers here, like -0.3 defensive WAR on Fangraphs, like that's come on with that. He was way better than that. And third base is usually a place that has, because defensive metrics in general are not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but third base is usually one of the positions that's a little bit more accurately graded. So that's surprising to see stuff like that. But overall, again, a great defensive year for Suarez. Now, do we think he can keep this up? And specifically, can he keep up the offense moving forward? Because, the last 2 years were awful for him. 2020, he slashed 202, 312, 470 with a 100 WRC plus in 57 of the 60 games. Then 2021, he slashed 198, 286, 428 with an 84 WRC plus. This year, of course, was back to his, earlier numbers. He was more in line with his earlier numbers. The average was a lot lower than maybe his career norms during, the 2016 to 2019 stretch. The strikeouts have continued to go up. This was a career high in strikeouts for him. He was, I believe, was close to the league lead in strikeouts overall. But and this has been a thing that has kind of crept up since 2020 as well, or since 2019 rather, because he, from 2015 to 2018, he was hovering around 23.5% strikeout rate and was still walking around a 10.5% clip walk rate. But since 2019, he was 28.5. 2020 he was 29. 2021 he was 29.8, and then this year 31.2%. So in terms of sustaining the success that he's had, does the strikeout rate concern you, or is the fact that he is able to hit for so much power and is able to walk at an above average rate enough for you to think that he can continue this moving forward?
I feel pretty comfortable expecting him to repeat what he did last year going forward. He's going to strike out. That's just going to be part of his game. But he's going to draw walks. The power is very real. And, as long as he can continue to play pretty good defense, there's really no reason for him, not to hit somewhere in the middle or back middle of this lineup going forward. I think ideally you'd like him to hit, sixth for you instead of third or fourth. But I don't see any reason why he can't repeat what he did this last year. He's always going to be a bit of a streaky hitter. He's going to strike out, but he'll be able to carry you for weeks on end. So I feel pretty comfortable, putting Gino in the lineup pretty much every day next year as my third baseman, DH, first base, whatever.
Yeah, and so there might be an opportunity. We'll see how they construct the roster over the next few months, but there may be an opportunity for Suarez to kind of move around a little bit and maybe DH some, maybe play a little first base like you're talking about. we'll see what they want to end up doing and how things all kind of come together. But Suarez is creeping up there in age now. He's 31 years old. He'll turn 32 next July. So maybe if you can take some of the innings off of him at third base and give him some more DH days, that would help out a bit. He played 150 games and really only missed action because of that finger injury. So he missed 12 games despite having basically a broken finger for the end of the season. That's another thing too, right? Like, we talk about the personality and everything. Eugenio Suarez is a tough what, right? Like, being able to go through that and play and be able to play third base, by the way, because that was a really surprising thing. I remember when he was coming back, and they were working Ty France over at third and all that, we were talking about, Suarez is probably not going to play third base again this year. And lo and behold, there he is playing third base, like his second game back. And so that's pretty remarkable. And that's something that, that clubhouse that's going to win that clubhouse over forever. Right. So, that's a testament to just kind of who Suarez is as a baseball player, as a person. And so, but overall, kind of just going back to what I was saying about kind of limiting some of the innings and stuff, I think it'll be good for him to maybe, get some more time off over the course of a season and at least defensively, and just let him DH a little bit there to kind of take the brunt of the workload off of his shoulders. Because, it's a long year, and, it's even if he is, basically an Iron Man, right? Like, guys still need, a blow here and there. But yeah, so overall, you got to feel incredible about what Suarez was able to do this year. And even if he does regress some, I think, you'll take that player. Even if he's like a 115, 120 WRC plus guy, like, that's still a really good player to have. And if he can at least be average defensively on top of that and give you 25 to 35 home runs, you take that any day of the week. That's one of the best third basemen in all baseball, consistently. And I think there's enough here to suggest that he is going to be able to sustain this, because also you look back at the last couple of years, he was dealing with a gnarly COVID bout in 2020. Then the next year, he had shoulder surgery after having a freak accident in a pool. Like, there were outside factors, and on top of that, he got moved to shortstop, which is ridiculous. You don't see guys get moved from third base to shortstop. You see guys get moved from shortstop to third base. So there were a lot of outside factors that I think were contributing to him to his struggles over the last couple of years. And I think this being more in line with where he was pre-COVID, pre-injury, suggests that this is probably more so who Eugenio Suarez is, rather than what we saw in 2020 and 2021. Now, before we hop off of here, I want to cover a couple small items. One, the Mariners DFA Drew Ellis at some point. They didn't actually announce it, I don't think, but they announced today, Mariners PR announced today, that he cleared waivers and was outrighted to Tacoma. So he is now off the 40-man roster. The Mariners' 40-man roster is now at 41 players, so they do have to clear one more spot in order for both Tom Murphy and Casey Sadler to be to come off of the 60-day IL. Now, that doesn't really matter, because in a matter of days, whenever the World Series ends, Adam Frazier, Kirk Casale, Matthew Boyd, Mitch Haniger, and Carlos Santana are all going to be coming off of the 40-man because they're free agents. So that's not a huge deal. But Colby, I mean, they're really there's a bunch of options for them to clear 40-man roster spots still. Brendan Bernardino, Juan Ten, Justice Sheffield. There's no roster crunch here, right?
No, not yet. Brian O'Keefe is another one.
Yeah.
There are probably guys you don't want to move on from. Evan White, Taylor Trammell, Justice Sheffield, but you can. Those are just names right now at this point. So, and there's plenty more. The Mariners aren't going to have any kind of issue, basically maneuvering their roster any way they want. They're going to have to add, I think, probably at least 2 or 3 guys to protect them from the Rule 5. I'd be pretty shocked if they didn't add Cade Marlowe. And, I think there's a couple reliever arms that are really interesting, like Isaiah Campbell,
Joseph
Travis
Hernandez.
So, yeah, I mean, we'll see. But Yeah, they're not going to be in any kind of a crunch whatsoever. Those decisions are going to come here pretty soon, though. I think you have to have your 40-man set for the offseason, i.e., you have to protect your guys from the Rule 5 draft by November 20th. So here in a little more than 2 weeks, we'll know who's going to start the year on the 40-man. So yeah, there's no roster crunch. Like you said, I bet we could probably get 20 names deep before we're like, no, he's absolutely has to be on the roster. Like, you're not DFAing that player. It's probably no joke, 12 to 18 guys who you could conceivably DFA and be like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, and so and that's not to even mention guys like Ryan Barucki, Luke Weaver, who was just added, Alberto Rodriguez, who's still a ways away from the majors,
Diego Castillo,
even someone like Diego Castillo, even someone like Ryan Barucki. The list goes on and on and on. Kyle Lewis, Evan White, etc. Like, if you want to get deeper into your bag, but like the Mariners are not going to add a ton of players, I think, to the 40-man roster over the course of the offseason. I think what ultimately happens here is that when the Mariners do add, it's going to turn some heads, right? They're going to add impact, right? That's how they're going to do the bulk of their offseason. And, they're going to still do like the minor league ads, and, if there's someone that hits waivers that's interesting, like they'll kick the tires on that. But ultimately, I don't think we're going to see a lot of players added to the 40-man roster. We're just going to see a lot of impact added to the 40-man roster, and therefore there aren't going to need to be too many moves made to clear space. But again, 5 spots are going to open up when the Mariners free agents officially become free agents, and they still have some what I would consider to be obvious names that they can also DFA in order to create more space, and they will do that over the course of the winter. I don't think that they need to do the Rule 5 stuff until December, so they might hold off on that because the winter meetings aren't until December 4th, December 5th. And that's when the Rule 5 happens. So I think maybe they can hold off on that until the start of December. We'll see, though. They might just jump the gun on that and just do it now if they know who they want to add. And that way they can just kind of put things into a clearer picture. Speaking of the winter meetings, we are doing a giveaway, if you missed it, that is running until the end of the winter meetings. So the day after the winter meetings ends is December 8th, and that's when our giveaway ends. Just to refresh everyone on what we're giving away, we have already hit our mark to give away a Taylor Dollard autograph card. So we're going to be giving that away next month. That was 4,000 YouTube subscribers, which we've moved on past. We're closely approaching the 4,200 sub mark. Our next goal is 4,500 YouTube subscribers. At that point, we will be giving away a Taylor Trammell autograph card. And with 4,500 YouTube subscribers and 3,000 Twitter followers, we still have a ways to go on the Twitter followers. So if you have a Twitter, or if you want to make a Twitter and follow us on there, check us out at at LO_Mariners. Give us a follow, and if we reach 4,500 YouTube subs and 3,000 Twitter followers, we'll give away a Jerry Kelnick autograph card. We're also giving away a Cal Raleigh, yes, Big Dumper autograph card at 5,000 YouTube subscribers. And then our last couple of prizes, they're a little pie in the sky, but I think we might be able to get to one of them if you guys help us out. If we become the most subscribed to Locked On Mariners or Locked On MLB podcast on the Locked On MLB network, we're second right now, by the way, trailing Locked On Astros. So if you also want to beat the Astros in something, help us out. I'm just saying. If we do that, if we surpass them by the end of the winter meetings, we will give away a very nice autographed Mike Cameron card, which is what? It's like something out of 75 total cards that were made. So all of these are Colby's cards, by the way. So if you also just want to win Colby's stuff, if you just want to do it from that aspect, do it. Lastly, We're giving away a Logan Gilbert autographed and graded 9.5 from Beckett card at 10,000 YouTube subscribers. I don't think we're gonna get there, but we're not advocating for bots, but if you want to tell your friends, if you want to tell your family, if you want to tell your enemies, literally just go out in the street and yell, "Hey, people of planet Earth, subscribe to Locked On Mariners." We certainly welcome that. Maybe don't harass people on the streets, though.
It's just nice to know that I'm going to get to keep all these cards except for the Taylor Dollard, because the listeners of Locked On have gotten lazy. So fine by me. I will happily keep my Cal Raleigh card and my Logan Gilbert and my Mike Cameron and my Jared Kelnick, and I will laugh along the way.
He's using the same strategy that he used to get you guys to submit videos for what ending the drought would mean to you, and it did. So hopefully similar success comes our way. And with that, that's going to do it for our show. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. For Colby Patnode, I'm Ty Gonzalez. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at LO_Mariners. You can follow me at Dane Gonzalez. It's DANEGNZLZ, and Colby at CPAT11. That's CPAT11. You can also find all that stuff in the description of this episode. And thank you again for making us your first listen. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast, featuring the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. It's available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast just like us. And with that, have yourself a beautiful baseball day, and we'll see you tomorrow. Peace.